Today's lesson is going to be looking at the difference between gross pay and net pay and a little bit on what deductions are. So you can see here we've got a couple of different formulas. So the first one that we're looking at is what net pay is. So net pay is your gross pay minus any deductions that you might have. Looking at it from the other perspective, your gross pay is your net pay plus any deductions that you have. Now this is something that I like to think of when I'm trying to remember the difference between gross pay and net pay, because it can be a bit confusing. And the key to this one is looking at the person down the bottom, which is you, okay, and you are holding on to a net. Now at the top is your boss, and he's got your gross pay up there in a bucket. He's pouring it off, and you've got to catch what you can in the net, and whatever falls away are your deductions. Okay, so your deductions and your net pay add together to give you your gross pay. Alright, what are deductions? So you did a little research activity to look into the specifics of each of these deductions, so I won't go into those now, but just a bit of a list as a reminder. So we've got your HELP or your HECS repayments that you might have if you've engaged in some tertiary study. You've got some union fees if you're a member of a union, superannuation contributions if you choose to make your own contributions on top of your employers, your tax instalments, which everyone has to pay, and your health fund instalments if you are a member of a health insurance company. Okay, so an example of some calculations that you might have to do. So we've got Rachel, who's a nurse. She receives a gross weekly wage of $2,140. Okay, so that's gross. So, like we've done with previous questions, what we might do is underline the important stuff. Okay, so we're talking gross, and it's 2140. Okay, deductions are as follows. Income tax at a rate of 33% of a gross wage, health fund payments $56.85, and then super at $64.20. And the question is asking us to calculate her net pay. So again, marking that so that we can come back to it later. Alright, let's have a look at a solution. Before we can actually figure out her net pay, we need to work out what her income tax actually is. We need a dollar amount. So if it's 33% of her gross wage, we find 33% of $2,140. That works out to be $706.20. Now we can use our net pay formula to find the net pay. So the net pay is going to be gross pay minus deductions. So $2,140 minus her income tax, health fund and superannuation payments all added together. And we end up with a net pay of $1,312.75. Okay, and just a final example of a sort of question that you might come across. What percentage of Rachel's gross pay is spent on her health insurance? So I've just put a little reminder there what her gross wage was and the amount that she spent on her health insurance. Okay, so if you want to work out what percentage something is of something else, a good place to start is to write it as a fraction. Okay, so her health fund as a fraction of her gross pay, $56.85 over $2,140. Then the general rule for turning a fraction into a percentage is to multiply by 100, which is exactly what we do, and you end up with 2.656, etc., which rounds to about 2.7%. That's the end.